Hey folks, this is Sujan Kapadia from Chariot Solutions here. My compadre Ken Rimple, who you've grown to love and see every week, can't make it today, so it's just going to be me. So let's get ready. All right, so first off, the Philly community can't stop talking about ET, emerging technologies for the enterprise, a conference that the community and Chariot together have been running for, I think, almost 15 years now. I've lost track, and I've gone for many of those years. We have an amazing lineup this year. And for example, Alan Kay, our featured keynote, Alan Kay of Xerox PARC fame, one of the pioneers behind object-oriented computing and the modern PC and graphical user interfaces. He's going to be doing a keynote. We have a lot of other great talks. Keith Gregory, our AWS practice lead, is going to be talking about observability. We have Ken Beck, who's extreme programming, who's going to be talking about kind of where extreme programming was, where it is now. I'm really excited to be able to chat with him after the talk as well, kind of get his thoughts on where that's going forward, especially with things like SAFe and all these other large kind of heavyweight processes that a lot of companies are adopting, is how to position extreme programming between all those different things. We have Jessica Kerr, who's come a number of years, excited for her talk. Daniel Spivak, who's now working for Disney Streaming Services. He's big in the Scala community. And Brian Getz, again, another repeat attendee speaker at ET, Java Language Architect, who I'm actually going to be talking about today with the JDK 16 general availability. So we have a lot of people here, more than I can list right now, but it's going to be great. It's all virtual. You'll have access to the talks right after the conference is over. They'll be published shortly thereafter for those who purchase tickets, which are only $89 right now. So, definitely check this out. It's a lot of action-packed content. 3-day conference, half days, I believe. And yeah, so please check it out. All right, next, Chariot Solutions. We put a lot of content out on all sorts of different areas, technology, stuff in the Philly dev community. We're doing a 15 Minutes with series that we started last year, kind of during the COVID lockdown. The latest one, which was published March 18th, is 15 Minutes with Andrea Goulet on empathy-driven development. I'm actually excited to see this. I have not seen it yet. Some of the stuff that I have looked at with empathy-driven development, both around UX and API development. So I'm curious to hear what she has to say about this. Our AWS practice lead, Keith Gregory, has put a series of posts out on deploying Lambdas and packaging Lambdas. Now, those who have done AWS Lambda development, it can be pretty tricky, and package and deploying, in my opinion, is kind of half the battle. So Keith, over the last 3 posts, gets into things about Docker containers, which are now supported as a way to containerize and deploy your Lambdas as a first-class citizen. So he has 2 articles on that. And his last article, most recent, it basically compares 3 different approaches to deploying. Traditional kind of being, the Terraform CloudFormation infrastructure as code approach, the micro deployments approach, which is using things like serverless application model, and then also the S3 repository approach, for example. So he compares and contrasts and provides pros and cons of each. Highly recommend checking these out if you're interested in Lambda development and you're interested in kind of using Docker containers everywhere. You can do that now with Lambda. Okay, so also all our previous tech chats, a lot of our previous ET videos for many past years, our 15 Minutes with, and a lot of our content is available on the Chariot Solutions YouTube, youtube.com/user/Chariot Solutions, and you can subscribe right here and like. There's currently 5,000 subscribers. We have a ton of content on here. Like I said, all the past ET videos. We recently did an event last week, 30 years of Linux and open source, with Aaron Mulder, Chariot Solutions CTO, and Ken Rimple, who you all know. Highly recommend checking that out. They do a talk along with Nithya Ruff, who's head of open source at Comcast. And as we all know, really what we do day in and day out as software engineers, and would not be possible without open source. So a lot of modern technology, a lot of all the services that you use, all depend on open source software. So it's a critical, I think, component to how the world operates today. Definitely check that out. All right, so let's get into some interesting news this week. So for those who are Java developers and are kind of following the Java release cadence that's changed the last several years, JDK 16 just went GA last week, and for many of our clients, they're on Java 11 LTS, which is a long-term support version supported by Oracle. And then the next long-term version is going to be Java 17, which is, I think, slated for September this year. But JDK 16 came out, and one of the interesting features in JDK 16 is pattern matching. So for those who have come from kind of the world of Scala and Erlang or other functional programming languages, pattern matching is sort of a powerful way to take a piece of data or a variable, for example, and say, like, okay, I want to match it based off of the contents of it, like the value or the type or the structure of it. And for example, in Scala, you can do things like I just want to zoom in so it's easier to read here. You can pattern match based off the value, which is an example here. You can pattern match based off of the value, or not knowing what kind of data is going to be in kind of a fallback case. You can do a thing called case classes, which Java is also looking at, called record classes, which are essentially immutable data structures. And you can pattern match off of the actual contents and type. So what pattern matching is really nice is, like, if you're doing state machines or if you're doing message parsing to a protocol, you can easily and very cleanly express that as a pattern match in a case clause. But anyway, this is actually about Java and not Scala, but here's the example. So if we go back to JEP 394, for JDK 16, what they're implementing is pattern matching using instance of for the type. So currently in Java, you have to first check the type using instance of, then you got to perform a cast to get the type. Your variable is now in scope string s equals string object, and then you can start using that. If it gets past this, and then the cast then will be valid, and then you can start using the information. What they're proposing is a pattern match on type using instance of, where you do object instance of string s. And if you notice here, this is just instance of string. It's just a type. Here it's saying provide a type and an identifier s. If this were to pass, I can start using s right away in here and assume that it's in scope, that it is of type string, and I don't have to do the cast or assign it to a variable afterwards. So you're essentially reducing the amount of code you're writing, so it's a little less verbose. Another thing you'll be able to do is have conditional statements, like if it's an instance of this, use p here. If it's an instance of this, use p here. Now, p would already be in scope, so you wouldn't be able to use p again. So example, what you would do is you'd have to actually have separate statements. If you notice how these are a instance of point p, b instance of point p. What they're doing here is a instance of point p, p is in scope. If b instance of point p, p is not in scope here. So the motto is a pattern variable is in scope where it has definitely matched. Another example is using what Scala calls guard clauses. Here you have object instance of string s, and then assuming this passes, you can say, okay, and if the length of the string is greater than 5. So anyway, the idea is that this is just one step towards more pattern matching, like I mentioned about Scala, where they do not just value type, but also value, and case classes are also known as record classes, and the structure around that. So this is Java's first step at that, and getting further and further into that. You can also check out Brian Getz's original article from 2018 on pattern matching, which kind of goes into all the stuff I was talking about and what they eventually want to get to with Java. I highly recommend checking these articles out. And again, things like this are going to start getting Java on par with other languages like Scala and Kotlin, and I think allow us to do more functional programming type stuff. So I think I spoke enough about that, but I'm really excited to hear about this, and I'm also excited to talk to Brian Getz about it at ET after his talk. So definitely check that out. Okay. So another really interesting thing for those that are following kind of development in Java, a thing called GraalVM, which is essentially a way to have native executables, native binaries, single binaries run on, natively compiled down to machine code. So you're getting a single executable. You're not dependent on the JDK or the JVM as external dependencies. It's running natively, and startup times are much faster. Binary executables are a single one instead of a set of jars and a set of dependencies in the class path. You get one executable. So Spring Native beta just came out, and it's basically Spring supporting the ability to compile Spring applications down to native images using GraalVM and then running them as single executables. So native image is a ahead of time Java compile Java code standalone executable essentially. So you're using a custom builder to take your Java code and say, give me one executable that's going to contain all the dependencies and whatever I need from the JDK to be able to run this. So I'm not actually dependent on that at runtime. It's already baked into the image. So yeah, again, the idea being here is that you're going to get faster startup times. You're not waiting for the JVM to start up. You're able to run natively, so your code should, generally speaking, execute faster. And you're going to be able to essentially run these executables on more platforms in multiple areas without a large set of dependencies to bring along with you. So one of the things to note, actually, is there's a couple kind of limitations around this, right? So if you're doing native development and you're trying to build one executable, things like runtime reflection and dynamically loading classes, you're limited as to what you can do. You kind of have to know what classes are all going to be loaded. You kind of have to provide configuration upfront for what resources are going to be pulled in, what kind of reflection you're going to use. There's no class lazy loading. Everything that you want to reference has to already be shipped in the executable. So your class path is fixed at build time. But the fact that Spring is putting this out in beta now, and GraalVM has been gaining a lot of traction, I think you're going to see more and more of this. You're going to be able to see it in some embedded scenarios that it wasn't valid in before. So definitely check that out. I'm so used to having Ken here, kind of us bouncing ideas off and questions off each other. So I'm like kind of excited to be able to talk about this stuff with him afterwards, and maybe we'll review some of it in the next week's Tech Chat. So another really cool thing is the WebAudio API, which Ken has talked about before, and how powerful that's become, to obviously do things like music and sound generation on the browser. Something I had no idea about is that it's being used for browser fingerprinting. And for those that don't know about browser fingerprinting, it's essentially a way to generate a unique ID for a specific browser, to be able to essentially say, like, this browser that I'm using specifically on my machine, IP address, etc., has a specific ID. And they use that for things like determining sessions, and without having actual user information, determining which session is tied, if two sessions are the same, if they represent the same user, for example, or for fraud detection. Let's say I'm performing some e-commerce transactions, and I am always using the same browser. Like, I'm using a desktop browser on my Mac, and I'm using the Safari or Chrome on my on my iPhone or Android, and those are the only two I use. Well, if I'm using fraud detection, I'm using a browser fingerprint, then I know that whatever unique IDs represent those browser instances, those are the ones I'm always using to perform those transactions. And if I were to see like a large e-commerce transaction that wasn't one of those browser fingerprints, it may trigger an alarm, like, oh, there's potential fraud here, or there's an anomaly. Maybe this person who's performing it is not Sujan, or the person that normally uses these browsers to do it. So that's kind of fingerprinting at a high level. And if you look at Fingerprint.js, which is an open source project that has a company around it and a pricing model to be able to use their services to do browser fingerprinting, where they do things further than just generating the ID. Then they use machine learning to figure out whether there's anomalous activity going on. So that's sort of a paid feature. But things like your screen size, your fonts installed, your GPU, which is your graphics processing unit capabilities, and then signals generated by WebGL, which is a graphics library and audio produce an actual unique ID. So if you're interested in kind of how that works, this article breaks down how they're actually generating a signal and using that as a unique ID, because that requires algorithms, it requires hardware, and it requires like whatever algorithms and things that each browser is using. Chrome uses a different algorithm, Safari uses a different algorithm, Firefox uses a different algorithm. Now this latest and greatest API doesn't work on every single browser, so you have to do things like, can I use to see whether your browser supports the WebAudio API and what version of it is supported. But it essentially does all of this to generate that all behind the scenes. So I got interested in it because it's kind of scary that all these things are happening, and it can generate a unique identifier to kind of associate you without you even realizing it. Like I could be on Chrome incognito or Firefox private, and it still generates the same ID. So they can kind of track you even if you're doing incognito. So again, there's so many things that happen behind the scenes when you're browsing that you don't even realize, for them to be able to figure out who you are. So kind of, keep those things in mind. Even private browsing may not be as safe as you think, but this technology can be used to actually help you when it comes to anomaly detection and fraud detection. So there's positive use cases for it. So kind of the next thing I want to talk about that a lot of people have been talking about, and in all transparency, I haven't been following it or done any research until very recently, is NFT, which is, no non-fungible token. So kind of the big news this week is Jack Dorsey, the original guy behind Twitter. He sold his first tweet as an NFT for over $2.9 million. So your first question is, what is NFT? So NFT is, as I said, non-fungible token. And let's go to the, as we always go to whenever we don't know something, is Wikipedia. So non-fungible token, for those that know about blockchain and cryptocurrencies and how that works, is you essentially have this decentralized ledger that keeps track of things that have occurred, or in the case of like Bitcoin, the fact that someone created Bitcoin or processed something in order to produce Bitcoin. And the idea about a digital ledger is that it's cryptographically secure. You can't tamper with it. You can't change it without affecting the entire blockchain. So you can actually compute whether something's been tampered with or not, because if the value doesn't match an expected value once you've performed the calculations to determine what the value should be, using things like cryptographic hash algorithms, you are going to know right away that this thing has been broken. So they're using that same technology for non-fungible tokens, where instead of representing money or currency, where that's called fungible, meaning just completely interchangeable. If I have some commodity or money that I can exchange a commodity for, they're called fungible because they're both essentially the same thing, whether it's money or commodity, as long as there's a market to efficiently exchange it. The idea about NFT is that it's not there to exchange as currency or any store of value, but it's essentially an autograph or a signature, and you're using it as a foolproof, tamper-proof way to assign a signature to something, and then say like, okay, whatever details that signature captures, like who I am and where I did the thing and when I did the thing and what that thing is, like digital artwork, for example, or audio, capturing that and creating a signature for that and capturing that in the NFT and putting it on a blockchain like Ethereum or Flow or Bitcoin Cash. You can basically keep track of ownership of unique items, and you can keep track of who did what very specifically, and that can't be with modern technology broken or tampered with. So Jack Dorsey applied that to the first tweet. So it's basically taking that first tweet and put it in posterity, saying that I, Jack Dorsey, put this, and it can't be tampered with. It can't be reproduced in a way that would change ownership. And then he put that for auction. So this is becoming a big thing now. So for example, NFTs are spurring a digital land grab, according to this Wall Street Journal article, and we'll put all these in the show notes afterwards. Is, folks have essentially been under lockdown and working from home or school from home, or have not been able to travel or go outside. So video game usage has gone up, online usage has gone up. So investors and gamers are actually using NFT to assign unique signatures, right? Ownership to virtual pieces of land, like in a game. In this case, this is a fantasy role-playing game called Mirandus, and selling, auctioning off virtual land. I mean, this is just mind-boggling to me, and I think shows how old I am, that I can't even fathom the idea of selling virtual land online. And I mean, I guess it makes sense to a certain degree, right? You know, people are producing music, which is digital at the end of the day, and sold online, or you pay through a subscription like Spotify. Is people spend a lot of time on these video games building these structures, taking care of virtual gardens and things like that. My daughter plays Minecraft and builds like houses and palaces and takes care of the pets and farming and things like that. So people are putting so much time into this, and other people want to then be able to buy it and use it, that things like NFT allow them to put their unique stamp on it and make a digital good online in a virtual game, something that's now actually real, that can be passed around without being broken or tampered with. So that's kind of just one example of that: music, artwork, video games. Then if you want to, if you're interested in kind of reading more about what it is and how it's implemented, ERC-721 is a free open standard that describes how to build non-fungible or unique tokens, specifically on the Ethereum blockchain. So this gets into a lot more detail, and also provides and links to code examples on how to actually do things like this. So if you're interested in playing around with NFT and how it's implemented and the specification behind it, take a look at ERC-721. And the other thing I wanted to mention was, along with video games and digital land and assets like that, is they're using NFC to kind of cause artificial scarcity. So if once I've taken something, I may be able to reproduce that, copy it, distribute it, but to make it unique to me and to say, like, I'm the original person, I'm the original copy of this, you can use an NFT to take something that may be very abundantly available, but create scarcity out of it, and therefore, increase the value and be able to charge a lot more for things, and provide like autographed items and things like that. So a celebrity can autograph something, and now that's captured digitally, and for sure that that is the person that actually did that. So I think we're going to see a lot more of this as more and more things continue to move along online, and more things are captured as digital assets. All right, so another really cool thing that, again, speaks to modern technology is, I don't know if folks have been following kind of different drone footage online. There's a lot of stuff on YouTube. There's a lot of stuff on TikTok and Twitch and things like that. But recently, there was drone footage about an actual active volcano in Iceland. And in the wake of the eruption, a drone basically flew around taking footage of the volcano as lava is actually coming out of it. So I don't know how well this is going to show up, but I'm going to play the video for a few seconds just so you can see kind of what this is.
Áhyggjulaus í 7 ár, dekraður í 3 ár. Já, með öllum nýjum Toyota bílum fylgir 7 ára.
Hold on one sec. So I don't know how long that ad's going to be, so I'm not going to play it right now, but let me go back to this. Sorry about that. So I'm able to see, no, I'm not going to be able to do that. So anyway, I should have played that ad earlier to get past the ad and then paused it. Highly check this out. It's on CNET. The links will be below. And this drone essentially goes, at the bottom of the volcano and kind of flies up, goes around it, goes right above it. And I think it was really close to probably being burned by the eruption, because it comes down so close to it. So this article kind of just goes through the different pictures on Twitter at different points in time. And let's see, oh, you can actually see this video here. This is nice. So let's see where this actually goes to. That's not the drone footage. All right, so I can't actually find the drone footage that wasn't on that website. So anyway, check out the CNET article. Check this out. I think we're going to see, again, more and more of this. And I think the other things around this are for, climate change and, scenarios where you need to rescue people. I think things like drones are going to help a lot, because it's going to capture kind of firsthand things that are going on in our world that we may not be aware of or may not be able to see firsthand. And we just see articles after the fact, and a lot of times then people don't believe it. Like, okay, I'm reading this article, but I don't have proof. I think drones are going to be able to provide a lot of proof in cases like that we're not going to be able to deny. So really cool, and check this out. It's kind of addictive looking at it. All right, so switching gears, back to things that I never would have guessed that are now blowing up in terms of value are, for those that don't know, Discord is an open source distributed communication chat software, kind of like Slack, Zulip, and other things, but it's totally free, and it's big in the video gaming community. But due to the lockdown last year, looks like this is under a paywall. There we go. So things like book clubs, crafts, arts and crafts, local neighborhoods, local communities, online schooling, virtual lessons, whether that's college or K through 12. A lot of people have started using Discord to the tune of, like, they have 100 million users now, and Microsoft is interested in buying them. And their current valuation is more than $10 billion. So, he went for something that was really niche for a number of years. People would just start up their own Discord servers because it's totally open source. And that's just been growing more and more and more. And I think we're going to get to a point now for Microsoft. They have things like Xbox Live. Discord is potentially a huge game changer for that, because they're going to get access to a lot of people, a lot of communities. Microsoft was in talks some time back to buy TikTok and Pinterest, and I think those fell through. But so they're taking a stab at this again to try to get a lot of these online communities. So be interesting to see what happens and where Discord goes. And my guess is likely after this, there'll be another open source thing that pops up so people don't have to use something that's backed by a large corporation. But kind of interesting to see the evolution of Discord and where this has gone. All right, so I think those are most of the links for today. So I want to just kind of mention ET again. Check out ET. We have been doing this for a long time. The ticket price is just amazing at $89. It's still way, way cheaper than early bird prices from previous years. So you're getting a really great deal. You're getting access to a ton of great speakers. Due to the fact that it's virtual and people don't have to travel, we're getting some speakers this year that we normally wouldn't have gotten, like Alan Kay and Kent Beck. It's really go through a bunch of different areas. We're going to talk about data engineering, data science. We're going to talk about AWS and cloud. We're going to talk about Open JDK and things in Java like Loom, which is around fiber-based, coroutine-based concurrency and functional programming. We have talks on let's see here, security, more on Java and Oracle, on Golang. We're going to have things on open source, lean software. We're also going to have talks on kind of what I find interesting. Lima Nasri is someone who's from the Philadelphia area community, works for Spotify now. And she's going to be talking about kind of software teams and how you can do more by doing less, with essentially how they organize their teams. So, and agile software. So that's kind of been a theme at ET as well through the years, is agile and how to be lean in terms of developing software and doing design and how to run things efficiently. And, Cherry, for example, being a small company, does a lot of things in sort of a lean manner. So we kind of espouse a lot of these principles. So I'm excited to hear her talk about this and how they do it at Spotify. So finally, I wanted to mention that Chariot Solutions is hiring, and we're really looking forward to this year. We have open positions for folks that are interested in Java, Python, Node, and AWS Cloud. We're looking for folks that are doing Swift iOS development, have significant experience in that. We're looking for data engineers. This is a new job opening for us that have experience in kind of designing, developing, debugging, optimizing data pipelines that do ELT, ETL, have experience in big data, kind of have experience across the stack in terms of cloud and be able to run efficient, reliable data pipelines for the purposes of analytics and warehousing and things like that. So if you're interested, you're in the Philly area, we're all remote right now. We plan on staying remote for the foreseeable future. And things start getting better. So please check out cherrysolutions.com/careers, open positions. And we're, I'm always willing to chat. Any of us are willing to chat about that more. So anyway, that's really all I had today. So I appreciate everyone joining us, and I wish Ken were here. Didn't get to really bounce any ideas or questions off of him, so I'm looking forward to having him back next week. So thanks for joining, everyone. We look forward to anyone that wants to join ET, reach out to us and provide more information around that if you have any questions, and please check it out. Thank you.